Ladies and gentlemen, welcome today. What an awesome event this is. I know I will be stepping into the shoes of a great South African icon who did the previous book for Zanele. And so, you know, I'm careful not to be too excited and forget, you know, the responsibility that sits on my shoulders today. So we know the late Dr. Cindy van Zyl did the previous book launch. And so we're grateful, you know, for what she's done and what she was able to do in the previous book launch. So I'm so privileged and so glad to be here and to have been roped into this process. Dr. Zanele Tlaka, well done, my sister. You know, these last two books have been amazing. I've also taken the time to read it. And so when we do this next, you know, hopefully I'll be here right alongside with you. If not, you know, in the MC mode, but just as a fellow, you know, person clapping and cheering you on. To our panel, thank you so much for having taken this time out today. And making this so worthwhile. It's glad to have everyone on board. I know there are people logging in from all over, and this is what it's all about, you know, so that we can start these conversations and see where we can, you know, put our shoulders to work. So thank you so much. Let me just say, yeah, this is Zanele's second book. The first one was Thabo Spectacles, hence wink wink, nudge nudge. I'm wearing mine quite proud today. And this one is the recent one we're going to be speaking about now, Lethabo and the coronavirus. And so I don't want to waste any more time. I hope you are as stoked as I am. And yeah, the idea is just to enjoy it. So we're going to start off, right? And just jump straight into it with Dr. Ngobese, and she's a pediatrician, and I'm going to first ask her just to sort of you know, introduce herself quickly, and then we're going to do you know, what we do best, and that's improvising, wink wink, nudge nudge. So thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. Please tell our folk a bit about you, and then we'll start with the program.
A very good afternoon to each and every single person today on the panel, together with the people that have joined us today. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Zanele, for inviting me here. As mentioned, my name is Dr. Ngobese. I am a pediatrician with the specialty in pediatric infectious diseases. I am currently working at Tembisa Hospital, and I'm running the pediatrics infectious disease unit there. Have a huge passion for pediatrics, fell in love with infectious diseases for some odd reason. And I think it couldn't have come at a better time now that we've got a whole new pandemic that has come our way. I think that children often don't get seen, and we have to be the voices of children. And that's what makes me really enjoy doing my job as a pediatrician. So it makes me speak up for them and for those people who do not have voices. So I'm looking forward to this time, and I hope that I'll be able to share good information with everyone, and that I'll be able to impart some knowledge. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think as we go along, I will introduce our speakers as well. I know that one of the illustrators having a bit of technical difficulty logging on, and so as we go with the program, I'll you know, introduce everyone and just sort of go with it, because on my side it would also seem there's a bit of a glitch, but this is how we roll, right? We were so prepared for all of this. And so my question then would be, Dr. Ngobese, how does the COVID virus manifest itself in children?
So since the onset of the pandemic, we have seen different ways in which COVID is affecting children. So previously, when we first started, we were aware that there was mostly the elderly generation that was sick. And then later on, we saw that was more people with comorbidities that were getting ill. And then later on, when they started realizing that kids also do get COVID, but they don't usually get, they get either asymptomatic disease or they get very mild disease. And then, however, early on in the pandemic, there was an onset that was discovered of complications of COVID that children often present with. And we are starting to see that a bit more, and we're wanting to respond a bit better to that phenomenon. But in terms of the symptoms that they usually present with fever, sore throats, a headache. They may present with gastrointestinal symptoms, that is vomiting and diarrhea. So they're very vague and very non-specific. Also to the presentation for the patients. And what we have seen is that the majority of the patients that have actually presented with COVID are usually asymptomatic. And if they do end up being ill, they have very mild symptoms that do not require for them to be admitted to the hospital. From the data that we had, or that I was reading up worldwide, the COVID pandemic has affected about just over 14% of the population, so 40% that have been affected as children worldwide. And in South Africa, it's just under 9%, that is the lab confirmed cases of COVID. And what is very interesting is that only 3% of those that have been affected, children, have been admitted and had severe COVID. So yes, the children are getting COVID, or the younger generation is getting COVID, but we're seeing much less severe disease and much less need for them to be hospitalized.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much. A load of information, and I hope that everyone that is joining in and listening today are taking note of the very important facts that are shared within this time, and also, you know, our role as parents and where we play this. So the next question from my side would be: have the variants of concern changed anything in the children that you have managed? Those who are infected?
So then it's just as we are seeing different presentations in adults, we are seeing almost a similar pattern in children as well. So one of the things that is quite interesting that we're seeing now with the Omicron variant is the fact that there are much more younger children who are being infected, even though they're not having more severe disease, but we're having more of them getting infected. So as it ebbs and wanes, we've been seeing the same thing as well with the children, but roughly this presentation has been that they're either asymptomatic or they have very mild disease, and there's only a very few percentage that has actually been presenting with quite severe disease, and this has been consistent since the beginning of the pandemic. So as we are also learning more and more about COVID and how it affects children, we are also seeing how it changes. But so far, we can't really say that it's causing more severe illness than the previous variants. But yet, it's still very early on. We're here to follow it up, and we're going to obviously give out some more information as we see the things change in the future.
All right. With adults, we know that many people will unfortunately have prolonged symptoms, which has come to be known as long COVID. So that is what it has been known for now. So what complications do you see in children after COVID-19 infection?
So fortunately, this is one of the reasons why I also really enjoy pediatrics, is that kids are so resilient and they really jump back when they're ill and they get better very quickly. And we see that with COVID, that the kiddies actually, they get very, very well if they've been severely affected or they're just presenting with the mild symptoms. However, there is that very small percentage that does present with complications a little bit later on with the disease progression. And one of the phenomena that we see frequently, or the most frequent complications we see, is that is called your multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. So basically what that is it's a manifestation of the inflammatory response of the body towards COVID that happens after the infection has occurred. So it's a very distinct entity from actually the acute COVID disease itself. So it's something that gets seen a little bit later on. So it's about 4 weeks after the initial time that the patient had been contracted COVID. So we see that, and it presents with multiple manifestations that are often quite significant, that are requiring long-term follow-up. So for example, they will present, for instance, with cardiac abnormalities in the long run if it doesn't get managed earlier on. So when a child is then unwell and they then get admitted to the hospital, there's certain criteria that need to be ticked for us to say no, that the child qualifies to be defined as having an MISC, which is the multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. And then there's different treatment protocols that we're using to further mitigate the complications that may arise in the future. So I think that is one of at the moment, that is what we're looking at and what we are trying to manage in our pediatric patients, is the management of the multi-inflammatory system a complication in children. So yeah, that is the biggest thing that we're seeing in children, but there's different criteria that need to be met in order to be diagnosed. But fortunately, there is some sort of management that is in place to treat it in the acute setting and also in terms of follow-up. But as with everything else, there is still evolving information that is coming out, and we're getting more research that is helping us to manage our patients better.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I think, I echo the sentiments of many people that are saying, as much as we're saying our kids are resilient, we want to thank people like you for keep on doing what you do and for being that resilient as well. So what, if I, within this interview, forget to say thank you, please, this is that moment. We celebrate you, we pray for you as you fight right on the forefront, and that includes all medical staff and all people going out there trying to make a difference. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Here's my next question. We are currently in a challenging time where the issue of vaccinating against COVID-19 has become a major focus, and people remain divided on the issue. Can you perhaps give perspective as a medical professional on why vaccination is necessary? But most importantly, I think perhaps for the parent listening, is what information you can give about COVID-19 vaccines in children that might help a parent decide on what to do about this issue.
Okay, so I think that the topic of vaccines is quite a conscientious one, and we often forget that vaccines have been in existence for a long time, and it's not something that was developed now in 2019 to say we're not going to be getting, or 2020 we're not going to give this vaccine. It's something that has been long going, and very interestingly, when you look at the vaccine against the coronavirus specifically, it's not technology or methods that have been developed just now. It's things that have been actually ongoing for long periods of time that have just been amended to accommodate the specific virus. So just because the information is now accessible to us much quicker, doesn't mean that shortcuts have been taken in order for us to go there. The information or the technology and the studies and research have been ongoing for a very long time. So I think that's one of the things to say. It's a safe thing to do. We need to vaccinate our children, ourselves, in order for us to try and return to some sort of normality. We have seen that vaccinations worked in the past. I mean, we can talk about all the vaccine caused or the vaccine curable diseases that have now been eradicated. We talk about smallpox, we speak about polio, measles were not yet eradicated. We talk about all these things that have responded so well to vaccines, and we're not very quick to question those. But with this particular one, we think, oh, just because it's happened now, it's now something that is dangerous to the community, and that's not the fact at all. This information, the research that has gone into developing these vaccines has been in presentation for a very long time, so they are very, very safe. So I think that we need to remember that what the vaccines do is that they help us to contain the illness to some sort of a degree, and over years, obviously, we can then eradicate it and we can go back to our normal daily living. So it is very important that we vaccinate, and research has proven that patients who have been vaccinated who then subsequently develop COVID-19 develop it at a much milder degree, and they are at much less need for oxygenation and even hospitalization, which is very important, because then it means that the person will be able to get back to work much sooner. There's less burden of impact on the family, the economy. It's really something that we need to consider. The children as well to be vaccinating. We often think, no, children shouldn't be vaccinated, or maybe we don't have enough research, but we need to also remember that our pediatric population contributes almost 40% of our population in South Africa. That is a lot. And for us not to look at that population and say they also need to be attended to and vaccinated, I think we'll be a little bit ignorant of us, because we are saying that they're not important, but they're a huge proportion of our population. So we definitely need to consider that fact and say that, no, we need to vaccinate them as well. And also with the information that we have that with the Pfizer vaccine that we're currently using, even though with the children under 18, they're getting one dose, partial immunity is better than no immunity. So definitely it is something that we need to consider as parents. They are safe, they are helpful, and they will help the community to be able to get back to some level of being normal. So I'm definitely pro-vaccination. Have had my first one as well as the booster, and encouraging everyone who has got a chance to go to definitely go and get the vaccine.
Wow. Thank you so much to everyone who has been joining us, since we started this conversation. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are speaking to Dr. Ngobese, who's a pediatrician, and she is sharing, information about COVID in children, how it manifests, how what precautions to take, and all of that. So I think my closing question would be in your final closing comments on COVID-19 as it pertains to children. What would be some of the closing thoughts that you would want to share with everyone that has joined in today?
I think that we really need to talk to our children about COVID. We don't often take into consideration children's emotion. We just expect them to be resilient and we expect them to bounce back. And I really think it's important that we talk to our children about COVID and how it affects everyone around them. They have seen lots of death, things in their lives have completely changed. And I think that their normal lives have been disrupted to a significant degree. So I think communicating with children, letting them know that this is what we're dealing with, this is what we're going through, and showing them the evidence that things are getting a bit better, I think would be quite encouraging for children. And then also trying to return to some sort of normality in terms of also going back to school. I think the parents have been some parents have been quite reluctant about sending the children back to school, worried about the transmission of COVID at schools. But it's actually been shown, research even in Europe, that going back to school has got a much better emotional and social impact rather than keeping the children at home, because we do need to have continuous educational and mental development for our children. So yes, COVID is here, but we are able to mitigate some of the consequences by wearing our masks, washing our hands, safe social distancing, vaccinating. We can get to a certain place where we are back to normal. So COVID is not the end all and the be all. We are definitely going to see another pandemic at some point or another. And we just need to be able to adjust to the circumstances in which we are facing at the moment. They may be difficult, but it's not forever. And yeah, we will definitely go back to a place where we can run around freely, but we can only do that if we all just vaccinate everyone. So everyone to take care and keep safe. And hopefully we'll be able to join each other again for the third book of the Thabo and Lethabo series. Thank you very much, Lillian, for this opportunity.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for informing us and for making sure that, if those questions come up from our kids, because you know how curious they are, the kind of questions that they will come up with next. So this is sort of, we've got information in our toolboxes. We've got information, with people like you sharing, and that makes us, so much stronger together. And like I said, as we celebrate resilience, it allows us, to sort of be prepared for what's coming. And so I thank you. So again, from my side, I just want to, congratulate Dr. Zanele for embarking on this journey, making sure that we understand some things about COVID, not just COVID, but we will be, discussing a lot of other medical sort of themes going forward. And that is so important. So hopefully, I'm not saying, but there will definitely be another books coming, right, Zanele? And a lot of other, issues that we will tackle.
Most of us will acknowledge just how important the influences of childhood are in shaping an individual. So it is that I find myself so invested in playing my part in optimizing children's development. And as I continue this journey, a quote by Michelangelo has created a profound analogy for me. He's quoted as having said that every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it is the task of the sculptor to discover it. And so, in my mind, a child is that statue within a stone. And the sculptor are the individuals, the adults, the parents, the teachers, the relatives that this child will encounter. These are the people who need to chisel away at the stone until the sculpture, the individual, is revealed. So with this analogy, it is then quite clear what will happen if this chiseling is ineffective. An important part of this chiseling, an important part of childhood development, in my mind, really is literacy. I mean, as it stands, the stats relate that there are 773 million adults across the globe who cannot read or write. And I think it is perhaps time that we work towards ensuring that that statistic changes. And apart from reading being a tool for really reducing global poverty, we know that reading is important just for the development of an individual. And it's great to see how rapidly children's literature is growing. Children must read and read some more, and their beautiful minds will grow. Reading will allow them to go to a place where they can dream, a place where they can learn, a place where their minds will really grow. Reading will help them unearth the treasure in their minds and the treasure of their individuality. So let's journey together and do far more for this generation of children than has ever been done before.
Now we have another guest in the studio. Listen to me, in the studio. All right. Another guest joining us on this platform. He's known as Dr. Daddy Z. I had the opportunity to go on his the website and Facebook pages to see what is it his input all about. And so Daddy Zibuse Konene is also joining us and will be sharing about us. And I think it is so important, as a male, that he gives us his input. He is husband to Hengiwe and a dad to a 15-year-old and then a 5-year-old. And so, that sort of equips you, sir, to answer, the questions that kids would have. So I would like to say the platform is yours Ladies and gents, this is Daddy Z, as he's known, and he will be focusing on why it is important for a father to read to his kids. And if you haven't read the book, this is exactly what happens that is exactly what happens in the book as well. It's almost a reversal of roles where dad is at home and mom has to go out, and then dad does the reading and the answering of a lot of questions. So, sir, thank you so much for stepping into these shoes, and for representing, and hopefully we'll get other dads involved as well to say, we need you, and we can do this together. So much.
Thank you, Mami, for the introduction, and thank you to everyone who's on the platform, for joining us today. But kudos to Mami Zanele for the books. It's quite an amazing thing to be writing 2 books and which are children focused. We don't see too many of those. And then today's topic is quite an honor for me to be talking on, because my 5-year-old is constantly demanding that I read to him before he sleeps. So we've got different kinds of books. But what I've realized is, reading for us as Africans is another form of reading and telling stories. It allows us to use our imagination, especially in a day where we find that parents are busy and the easiest thing to do is to give a child a mobile device or switch on the TV and let them sit in front of that device and let that parent them instead of us. And therefore, to then have a father reading a book, maybe let me just backtrack. To have parents reading books to children is quite a profound thing and a very important one, a moment of bonding. But to also then take that forward and have a dad reading to a child is phenomenal. The work that we do has exposed us to so much information, and one of the things that we've learned is that the presence of a dad in a child's life already gives them the confidence and the ability to operate in their environment and also perform well academically. Now, to have that father reading to the child, and even better at bedtime, is another phenomenal thing, and it does so much wonder for the child. In Africa, we often tell stories, and our mode of communicating and engaging and teaching is through storytelling. And in this day and age where we find fathers absent, it is very important to have fathers coming back into the picture of the child and are able to then be the ones who tell stories. But they cannot tell stories because they themselves may have missed out on all of that. And especially now, in a day and age of COVID, it becomes really difficult because children are very curious. They will ask you all sorts of questions. And I'm happy that Mami Zanele has these books that can help parents navigate this COVID world and have us teach our children how to deal with the current challenges that we all face. And therefore, it becomes a very strong bonding moment when then a dad comes and he reads stories. I know that women have a thing for like your deep voices. So imagine that deep voice or that fatherly voice then reading to a child as they fall asleep. It's such a beautiful thing. Um, and then the one thing that I want to share as well is that it helps the father develop his own vocabulary, his own style, because you can't be reading monotonously throughout. there are parts where you have to interchange. There's this voice, there's that voice, there's an exclamation there, there's an exclamation here, and you now have to kind of modulate your voice as a father, and you are challenged. Nothing challenges you more than just having to alternate your voice. Hey, what are you doing? I don't know, said this one. You know, oh, the lion sounds, and they're quite exciting. Especially now when the roar is coming from a dad. Pity those dads with soft voices. But you kind of have to dig deep. But I really love that I'm not coming as myself into this platform, but I'm coming as part of DITP, which is Dads in the Picture. I love that we have been invited to be part of this. And I was intrigued when I looked at the attendees, most of whom are women. And I hope that the women who are here, who have men in their lives with children, can encourage the dads to say, come, here's a book, read. And what I've learned as well is you don't always have to, well, let me say this. I don't always read the age appropriate books to my son. Sometimes I digress and read like your John Maxwell or some of the books that I have, and he enjoys them. And it keeps him, it has his vocabulary developing. The other day he used a word I was surprised that he even knew. A 5-year-old asking me, responsibility. And the fact that it's long for him and for him to just on his own use the word responsibility was just
Wow,
amazing.
thank you so much for your inputs and for what you continue to do. And I think, if we are going to succeed in fighting and winning the battle against not just your the COVID and everything else, it is important to do it as a unit and that our kids see us as that. So I'm going to just throw this in. Any last sort of comments, advice, encouragement for dads out there who don't really know how to fall into the lives of kids and what's happening and how they can sort of feel part and parcel of it? What would you say to dads out there?
Thank you, Mami, for that question. It's quite a, if I may say, a complex issue. So there are those dads who are not in the picture because of the strained relations between mother and child. So for the purposes of keeping this short and sweet, I will not talk to those for now. But I'll talk to the dads who are in the home. They are together under the same roof. It starts from when you learn that you are pregnant, because your doctors will tell you that the child can hear the voices from a particular age. So when you can read for your child from that early stage, do so. It allows you to be there. It allows you to teach your child your voice. Um, and it allows you to also bond and be part of the pregnancy. That's why often when dads who are part of dads in the picture, they get news that they are pregnant. It's not always saying now my partner or my wife or is pregnant. We always say we are pregnant, because then it becomes inclusive.
Yeah.
You are there in that process from day one, and you get to be active, you get to know what's going on, and you contribute to the growth of that child. So you teach your child that voice, you bond with them. It's amazing how children from about a month or so, when when you start saying hello, they start tracking your voice. They know this is my dad's voice, this is my mother's voice. And when you haven't spoken to your child or read to your child from that early on while they were still in the tummy, it becomes another opportunity when they are born, but it's nicer to do it while they're still in the tummy, because they can't actually look at you and judge you and say, daddy, but you're not reading that one right. But daddy, because children can be slightly judgmental when they know certain things. So to dads and moms out there, moms, allow the dad to come into that space. He may not parent the same way that you do, but he brings his style of parenting. Give him the book, give him books, buy them books, allow them to bond together reading. I stay in the city of Tshwane in Pretoria East for about 11 days. We didn't have electricity, and those were days where we could now bond and take those solar lights and just read to each other, and that was an experience on its own, one that we'll never forget. So I encourage all dads and moms to encourage dads to read to their children. If mom, you want your quality time and your child is busy bugging you, just give the child a book and say, go ask your dad to read this for you.
Well, thank you so much, sir. A wealth of knowledge you are. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I think platforms like these allow us, to share knowledge, but wisdom as well. A lot of wisdom that comes through experience. And I know Dr. Cindy, the late Dr. Cindy, in her absence, who was known as she called herself the Duchess of Healing, but she was also known, as the people's doctor. We continue the legacy of informing, continue the legacy of making sure that everyone is informed and that we know what we're up against. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your input. Thank you for the sheer passion of doing what you continue to do. And
Thank you, Mami.
To many great things. Going forward, there's one thing I said in an interview that I had with Eden Park Live just before the book launch was leaders are readers and vice versa as well. Leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And it is so important, when a child has a book, and I say this with confidence, a book sometimes replaces the teddy bear because it allows you that space and that time where you just travel to wherever you need to, wherever the book takes you. And so also we will be having a lot of young authors, I think, coming up because there's a trend of that happening. So dads, read to your kids and do it with all the animation, do it with the roars, do it with the laughter and the chuckle, because those moments are priceless. And thank you so much. Right now, we're going to go to a clip. It is Siago Maupula, and she's an educational psychologist, a businesswoman, a wife, a mother. She's passionate about social justice and empowering parents to assist, to be the best parent you can be, to be the best guardian you can be. So we're going to now go to a clip, and then we'll continue the program after that.
Good afternoon. I'm Siago Maupula, an educational psychologist. I'm very, very excited to be here to share on this amazing book launch. I'm quite sad that I can't be there live on Zoom with you today. Sure, Lethabo and the Coronavirus, a book that I think every single family needs. As we've seen in our communities and our families, more and more people are testing positive. There's more of a need to isolate and to quarantine. And the big question, the dread is always, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with my children while we are quarantining? How am I going to keep them busy, keep them entertained, and just help them with their emotional development? The most important thing is, regardless of the fact that you are quarantining, it's very important to speak about the realities of the coronavirus in a very age-appropriate manner, to explain to them what is happening and ask them what do they know, what do they understand, and to put at ease any fears they might have regarding the virus. And while on quarantine, routine is very, very important. Regardless of the fact that you might not know what to do, it is very important that there's a plan or there's a routine in place to keep your children, to help them be safe, to help them know that this is what's going on, because without routine, children feel unsafe, and that's the last thing that we want for our children when we're quarantining. Very simple tasks could be, you know what time the children wake up, what happens after they wake up, is it bath time, is it breakfast time, do we make breakfast together as a family? Make it fun for them. It really doesn't have to be doom and gloom. You could have amazing activities that you set out in the day on a whiteboard, or on the fridge, or anywhere in the house. There's a routine of, this is what happens today, this is what happens the day after that. And in your planning, to have things like physical activity, we can go outside and play in the garden. We could ride the bicycle around the house. We could have yoga. We could play Jenga. We could cook together. We can have puzzle night. Really just any activity for them to feel like life is some type of normal, even though you are in quarantine. Because if there are no activities inside, the only thing that they're going to do is to watch TV the whole day, is to be on their devices the whole day. And even though there's nothing wrong with TV, we also need to limit the amount of TV time that our children have. And most importantly, if they're watching TV the whole day, you're obviously not there to supervise all the things that they watch and all the information that they take in. And this could also contribute to heightened anxiety or stress or having difficulty sleeping because of all the information that they're consuming. It's really important that during this time of quarantining, we try to use it to the best of our abilities. How can we bond better as a family? Let's have a recap of the year. How have I parented you, and what do you need more from me? What do you want me to do differently going forward? And just to have that time to spend together. I've watched quite a lot of videos where children say, oh, it's the thing about being in quarantine or lockdown is the fact that or rather the thing they hate about lockdown is not being able to see their friends, but they really love the fact that they're spending time with their parents, spending time with their siblings. And honestly, there is no substitute for quality time. And I think if we can take anything away from this 2 minutes that I've been speaking, is that quality time is key. So let's see how we can use the quarantine period to spend time with our family, to bond with our family, do physical activities with our children, and really step into their world. Let's find out what they like. If you're going to be watching something on TV or streaming, watch the programs that they like so that you know where they are. I think we can all agree that our children are a very, very different generation from how we were raised. And I think just tapping into their world a little bit will help us understand them better, and in turn help us parent them better because we know what their needs are. So I really, really hope that you will use the time that you are in quarantine or isolation with your family to really just spend time. And of course, to face the realities of what COVID is about and how you can best support your child to make sure that they feel that they are safe, that they are loved, and really just appreciated, and that they're a crucial part of the family. Thank you so much for your time.
Our next speaker, we're going to go right into the next speaker, an author, speaker, and a coach. And thank you so much for joining us today, and sharing this platform. We are now going to be opening our tins, and we're going to be packing in. So you keep feeding us. As you can see, quite big machines that are in the house. So you need to feed us, right? So thank you so much for joining us. And I will now hand over to you, ladies and gents. This is an author, speaker, and a coach. And you would notice the people on our panel, it's just these roles that they play, and these various things that make them stand out. So yes, I'm going to just say, do your thing now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mamkele Dial Makubalo. I'm recently married, and I am, as Lillian has said, an author, a speaker, and a life coach, and a mom as well. Let me first extend my congratulations to Zanele for her second book. Writing is a hard process. And I can't imagine how harder it is when your audience is younger, people, and the work that has to go into that. and hopefully, you know, I'll get the guts to get my own children's book. But for now, I am a self-published book author. I've got 4 books that I've written. And yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Yeah.
All right. And while we're here and while we have this platform, any bits of wisdom, any bits of information that you want to share, you know, the subject matter being the book and the coronavirus and what everyone is going through. I know for me also working with kids and teenagers as a program manager at the student sponsorship program, you know, it's important to include them in the conversations we have in our fights against whatever diseases and you know, illnesses there are. What would be the approach for you, you know, sort of identifying and then also giving solution? Because as authors, you become solutionists, right? You become that thing or that person that people look to for directive and for sort of answers in these tumultuous times.
All right, so I'm going to make it slightly personal. So when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, when it started in China, I was pregnant. And my daughter was actually born a week before we were on lockdown. So when hospitals were being closed and everything, I was in hospital. I think I was on day 2 when they started closing down hospitals and not allowing visitors to come in, etc. So my daughter literally is a COVID-19 child, you know, and so now she's 20, going to 21 months, and she's already the girl who sanitizes when she goes into a shop. Wow. She demands a mask and all of these things. But I think the greatest challenge that I experienced within the pandemic was that for most moms who might have experienced this, I went through postpartum depression. And so being in postpartum through a pandemic with an infant, it was hell. And I think that trying to be the best mother or best parent in those circumstances where you're dealing with in the process, my daughter was 8 weeks when I got retrenched because of COVID as well. And so all of these things kind of were like a snowball effect. And what I'm getting to is the fact that your child feeds off of your experience, right? They feed off of your emotions and all of kind of the turmoil that you go through, the joy that you have, and all of these things. And so I had to make an extra effort to make sure that she is healthy in an emotional sense, in a mental sense, and obviously in a physical sense. And that meant that I had to get out of my comfort zone, because as depressed as I was, thinking of getting admitted so that I could focus on my mental health would also mean that I'm away from my child. We had no family support because our families are in the Eastern Cape and we're in Gauteng. And so all of these struggles are struggles that every other mother or parent has gone through, you know, during this pandemic. Whether it's an economic loss or an emotional loss where you've lost loved ones, all of these things affect how you parent and how you're present for your children. And so I loved the conversation that we had with OCC at the beginning, the pediatrician, where she said that we need to involve kids. They need to be a part of the process and a part of the conversation, because through conversating with Uluhle, my daughter, and saying how I'm feeling, even though she couldn't understand what I was saying, I was able to heal myself, and she was my support. And so I could be her support in her journey and growing up. And I think that the fact that, you know, small things like you get into a shop and you sanitize and you give her the sanitizer as well, makes her alert that, oh, there's something that I miss when I walk into a shop and I don't sanitize, right? And when you have a mask and she doesn't have a mask, it's like, why do you have a mask and I don't have a mask? I want to have a mask. And those are the safety precautions that, you know, even without saying that this is what you must do, by acting it, your child kind of gets informed that, oh, this is something that I'm supposed to do. So there's never a time where we enter a shop and my daughter does not have sanitizer on her hands because she's thinking there's something missing. Or if the security doesn't spray her hand, she goes and says, you know, because that's a pattern that she has seen us kind of show as an example. And I think that what also becomes important is you taking care of yourself as the primary caregiver to a child, so that you're able to actually be fully present for the child. Because COVID has affected us in many ways, but I think on an emotional and psychological perspective is that because we have not even gotten time to mourn and grieve, right? That normally, especially as Africans, is that you'd get at least a week to kind of get familiar with the idea of, oh, this person has passed on, there's a funeral and there's a send-off. So you kind of work through your emotions. But because we haven't been able to mourn, let alone knowing what it is to mourn and grieve, those things come out in our parenting. And I saw myself being overly emotional. I'm already an emotional person, but I was extremely emotional because I couldn't do the normal things that I was used to after losing a loved one. And that meant that I was also kind of showing her that this is what's going on and I needed support in the process. So I lost one of my mothers during right at the beginning of the first wave. And what that did to me was that it gave me a kind of a light bulb. You need help. You can't do this alone. And so I then needed to say, okay, I can't be super mom now. I've been retrenched. I am, you know, going through postpartum depression. I have this infant here. My husband was working from home at the time. So like everything was just happening all at the same time. And so we made a decision that once everything opens, we're coming to the Eastern Cape so that I could get support from my mother-in-law. And so those kind of things become important, that when you identify that there's a gap and that gap is taking away from how you're parenting your children, it becomes important to deal with issues like COVID and the implications of it and teaching your children. And I think that is probably my input in this platform, is that we need to be so conscious about our parenting and how we take care of ourselves so that we're able to show up in the best version of ourselves to our children and you know, show the right patterns as well. You kind of imitate what you want your child to learn from you, so that, you know, children don't have to kind of repeat the same mistakes also that we have made in our journeys. And so it's not just for COVID, but it's for every other, you know, pandemic, including gender-based violence and all of these things, that we have to show the pattern that they must then imitate.
Wow, thank you so much. I think one of the things that we sort of shy away from is being vulnerable enough to share your own story. And so I salute you for having shared that, because I think what a platform like this also does is it opens up other avenues that we might need to talk about in future as well. But the most important theme of what you said was, you are not alone. You're not going through this alone. There's someone else that feels like you. You know, being in quarantine, being alone at home with all of those questions, just sort of attacking you, if I can use that word, that there is someone that went through this, and so it makes it that much more easier. So you know, being vulnerable is such a gift in itself. You know, like I said, we read books, and Brene Brown also spoke about vulnerability. So being vulnerable is a gift. So please, everyone who is on this chat and this platform, don't see it as a weakness. Don't see it as just see it as a golden opportunity to learn more. I mean, Maya Angelou said it best: when we know better, we do better. So Simamkele, thank you so much for that. I think just as a closing, why would you say it is important to write? Why is it important to tell our stories then?
I think writing, for me, even on my journey, is extremely healing, but it also allows for a person to process their thoughts, right? And when you're able to process your thoughts, you're also able to allow your brain to kind of cultivate solutions to particular problems. So you'll find that a lot of people will say journal. And while you're journaling, you're allowing your mind to recalibrate and for it to say, okay, there's a problem. What is the solution that we can bring to this problem instead of sitting on the problem? And I think that we need to share our stories because, firstly, as you said, so that people know that you're not alone. But I think also there's so much wisdom that we could all learn from our different experiences, right? And the more that I am able to tap into, for example, daddy's experience, I'm able to say, oh, okay, because I didn't grow up with a father, I want a different narrative for my child. And so what does that look like, right? Because I can't be mom and dad. There are particular things that the dad is going to be able to play, the role that the dad is going to be able to play, and there's a particular role that I have to play. And as we all share our experiences, we learn from each other. But more than learning is that sometimes you need a formula, you know, and sometimes you don't know how to do particular things. And a person has gone through that journey and has certain things where you're like, okay, if you do this, this and that, you would be able to kind of cross over on that stumbling block. So we learn, but we also are able to adapt particular wisdom into our journeys as well. And I think it's fundamentally important as Black people because we, well, let me not say we, but I grew up in a house where reading was not a thing, right? I had to teach myself how to speak English eloquently. Because I didn't come from a school that, you know, I didn't come from a Model C school. And so I had to watch TV, I had to watch Oprah to have conversations or to see how people were holding conversations. Even in high school, there was a library, but I never walked into that library. I didn't even know that I would turn out to be an author at the end of the day. And so I needed to learn how to communicate, and reading helped me in being able to be the author that I am. I've now written 4 books, so they can tell you, you know, the impact of what reading continues to do for me in my journey. And so those are the key things that I think we need to, and for legacy, I think that's also the most important, for legacy, so that your children's children know that you left something behind for them, and they can trace back, you know.
Wow, thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah, I look forward to, you know, just having continued conversations as there are lots of tentacles going forward. And I think Zanele has embarked on such a special journey, you know, about writing about these kind of books that would sort of equip us, you know, understanding all these difficult and different medical terms and all of that. And I think also, Zanele, I have my hand up if ever there is a chance to also speak about, you know, children and the journey of going through living with physical disabilities as well, so that we know, you know, we've covered all the bases, and like Simamkele said, knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you can write about these things, that you can share, you know, the stories that will allow other people to start sharing theirs as well. So yes, we're continuing very passionately on you know, with this book launch. I hope you're still happy to be here. I am so grateful to see the conversations that are happening on our chats as well. So even while we're talking, there's already, you know, chats taking place and people being answered. Tulu Rapiri is here. She's a lifelong student of life. Tulu, if you're ready, I have sort of prepared the way for you. And I know our audience want to know more about you and what you do and how we should be communicating with children. So if Tulu is here and Tulu is ready, that will be awesome. We can continue with her input now.
Hi.
There you are. You had me worried. Did you see how much weight I lost in those like 2 minutes while trying to find you? So the floor is yours. Please share with us what you need to share with us. And then, yeah, we look forward to hearing what you're saying. Thank you so much, madam.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'd like to start by sharing with you about an experience that I had just a month ago with my sister's kids. That kind of gave me the light bulb moment that I needed to know as a, not just as an aunt, but as an adult that's always surrounded with children. So just last month, as I was gardening with my sister's kids, the 5-year-old, the 21-month-old, as well as the 4-year-old outside. This was around 5 to 6 p.m. We were doing the garden, and as we were gardening, comes this awkward animal. It's walking towards our direction, and I didn't see it at the time because I was facing the opposite direction. But the kids saw it and they started making a fuss and calling my name, Auntie, Auntie, come see, come look. What is that? What is that? I turned around and I saw a bat that I attempted to kill the previous week, but somehow managed to disappear. And there it was on that specific day with my kids, I mean my aunt, my sister's children around there. And I thought, okay, I need to do something about this. So I don't know about you, but if you're African, you probably had about all these negative, scary and dark stories about why bats aren't okay, and all these stories about why you should be worried being one. So at that time, I thought I have to do something, rush the kids into the house and try kill it this time so that I could break the omen, whatever that is. So the kids are asking, the oldest one, the 5-year-old kept asking, Auntie, what is that? What is that? And just for the comfort of myself, for my own comfort, I said, it's a frog. Oh, I'm scared. It's a frog. Let's go into the house and hide. It's gonna eat us. And the other two, the youngest, were so excited. We all dashed into the house and we tried hide. We're doing whatever we can, trying to hide from this strange creature we just saw outside that happens to be a frog. So the oldest one looked at me and he had his fingers, like his hands, his arms crossed. And he looked at me and he said, Auntie, that is not a frog. That one walks like this. And he did this with his fingers. And I laughed. I laughed because he was perfect with his illustration, with his hand illustration of how the bird walks. And it was that moment that I noticed that I had two options. I could continue on with the story that bird was a frog and confuse him even further because it's clear and obvious that he could see that animal was not a frog, or be honest and tell him that I lied and teach him what that animal was. So what I ended up doing, I taught him what the animal was, and even how I went about it, I was a big manipulator. What I did, I clapped my hands and I said, wow, Tatejo, that's his name. You're a good boy. You could tell that that wasn't a frog. Oh, I'm surprised. That is not a frog. Do you know what it is? Do you want to know what it is? And he said, yes, I want to know. And I responded, it's a bat. Repeat after me, it's a bat. And then I said, do you want to see videos of a bat on my phone? He said, yes, I want to YouTube. I showed him that. And it was that moment that made me realize the influence that I had as an adult over a child. It was that a moment that I realized that just being an adult around children, I have an influence into how they behave, into what their personality would be, even if at that time I wasn't really intentional and paying attention and being in the moment with him when he asked what the animal was. And I gave into my own paranoia and my own control of that whole situation. So that made me really think hard and deep about this topic of why we need to be mindful as adults when we communicate and talk to children. Because with that whole experience, I was annoyed that he was asking me a question at that time, and I gave him an answer that was convenient for me, and an answer that I thought would like get him off my back. But then I wasn't aware that at that moment, me saying that animal was a frog was confusing him because he definitely knew what a frog was, hence he called me out. And then the second one was I was lying. I was teaching him what it means to lie and how to go about it. And the first one was just to be comfortable and to be in control of the situation and not be vulnerable and honest with him. I told him I tried confusing him into thinking that there was something wrong with his intelligence and his reality, which could have affected him, which is bad because people who grew up with or reach a point where they start questioning their reality and how things are happening around them, they end up being susceptible to gaslighting. So that whole experience made me really look deep and hard into what influence I have on kids and on them. And it made me also realize that just being an adult around them, I have a superpower. I have a superpower that I can use to kind of lure them into a direction that will be beneficial for them in the future. This whole experience was mind opening for me because after that whole experience, I no longer just answer every like the way I want to. I think hard. If I'm tired and I'm uncomfortable, I'll tell them, okay, I'll give you an answer later, other than just lie and give you an answer that works for me. So one important thing that I've noticed about this experience too, which also is aligned to the topic I'm discussing today, is whether you are a teacher, whether you are a parent of a biological child who just happen to be an aunt like me who's constantly around children, whatever action you take, however you act and whatever you say in front of a child will have a consequence as well as an effect. It will have that impact on how the child would be, on their personality as well as their view of the world. Because that whole experience of me saying, that's a frog. Do you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Of me saying that is a frog could shape him into being someone who just listens to everything everybody says without questioning it. Because when he asked, he could grow to know that every time he asks questions, he's given any answer, even if it's not true. So let me get my point.
All right. So I
It
apologize.
also made me
You seem to be just dipping in and out a little bit.
okay. One other thing that I also noticed about this is that children don't just ask questions. They always have a reason behind asking questions. And one of the reasons why they ask questions is just so they could piece things together for their own knowledge and how they see and view the world. And yes, it's sometimes tiring to always be asked, what is that? Who is that? Where are you going? What is this? Why is that blue? It's sometimes tiring, but that is important and also crucial. And our response would influence um their personality too. If a child is constantly shut down whenever they ask a question, they are told to never have a voice, always keep quiet, to not question what's happening around them, and to absorb everything however we want them to or however we feel they need. And I believe that as parents, as adults, it's not our job to control children, to dictate what questions they ask and how they ask us. But if there's anything we can control, it's our response in answering those questions. And they don't just ask questions for the sake of it, they ask questions because they trust that we would be honest with them and will give them the honest answers in explaining exactly what is going on around us. So we have this tendency, I had this tendency, let me not generalize, of getting irritated when they would ask questions, obviously because it's tiring. And this believe that sometimes them asking questions is because they're nosy. They're asking questions to know so they could inform, and that's not true. Sometimes they're asking questions just so they could feed into their curiosity, which is something that I feel we need to accept about them other than tolerate. So if there's a reason why we need to be mindful as adults when we are around children, it's because children's minds is like sponges. They absorb things really fast, whether we say it to them with our words or not. And whether we want to accept it or not, it should have an effect into how they proceed in life. In fact, I came across a study by some organizations in child development that says that the first 3.5 years of a child development will impact how they socialize with friends and family, like how they behave in social spaces, about who they are and how they behave in romantic relationships, and how they learn like 30 to 20 years later. So it's very important that we need to be mindful when we communicate and how we act in front of them, so that we could cultivate an environment or an atmosphere that is safe and that could help them develop in a way that will benefit them in every aspect, whether it's emotionally, physically, in every aspect. Yes. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. A load of information. And then we're going to make sure that we, be careful, what we say, how we say it, because children are such pure spirits, they really just want to learn and find out sometimes. So Tulu, thank you so much. I think, just sort of adding or piggybacking on what you were saying. A little while ago, my niece was still small, and because I can't use my arm, she asked me a question. So, Auntie Lo, with that attitude and the neck and everything, she says, she asked, what's wrong with your hand? And I thought, instead of giving her the long answer, I would just say, so my bones are broken. The bones are broken in the arm, right? And I thought that was it. I had done my part as an aunt. I had done my part as, as a grown-up. And so she went off and she went and thought about this. She came back to me. She said to me again with the neck rolling and the eyes, so why can't you use your fingers? When my arm was broken and my bones were broken, I could still use my fingers. Why can't you use your fingers? And I thought, oh yeah, this is that time when I need to share with her the whole truth and nothing but the truth, because this will equip her, this will enable her, and she will have the superpower, right, that she needs. And so I explained to her, Lokes, so this is what happened until little spine, and I explained about the nerves that got injured, and that is why my brain can no longer send messages to the arm, and that's why the fingers. And so just by doing that, I gave her the confidence that she needed. And again, I was sharing my superpower as a grown-up, because guess what? The next time when someone came and asked, or one of her friends asked, so what's wrong with your auntie's finger? What's wrong with your auntie's hand? And I thought, oh, I've got to go through the whole thing again. No. That is when Logan stepped in and she said, no, Auntie Lo, don't worry, I've got this. Let me answer. And she went through the whole spinal injury and the nerve situation. And that is why. And so, at the end of her speech, she said, and if you need any more questions, please ask me. And I will sort of answer it for you, because Auntie Lo is so tired of telling the story all over again. And in that moment, I realized, this is what we need to do: be honest, be truthful, be transparent, and share information, because they become great ambassadors for us going forward, and because they're already leaders. We need to just make sure that we guide, that we coach, that we then allow them to develop in their own person. So Tulu, thank you so much. You really took me back to that story. I've sort of got all nostalgic there in that space. So thank you so much. Everyone, again, I'm loving the chats that are happening. I'm loving the interaction that is taking place, the communication, because I think if this is what we needed to happen. Moses has joined us. Moses, I know we had trouble reaching you earlier on. Again, my brother, thank you so much for all the great illustrations. It is good to see ourselves represented in the book, you know, the cornrows, the spectacles, and just sort of making us part of the journey. Later on, Moses will also be joining us when we have the Q&A session. So Moses, again, kudos to you. So great job on both books so far. And in advance, we thank you for the role that you will be playing in the next 50 books that will happen. All right, Moses, wink, wink. We're speaking things into existence now. Moses is here. He's just going to lean in slightly and tell us about, you know, the journey and the illustrations and what this journey has you know been to him like as well. I don't want to exclude him because he was part of the original you know panel as well. So Moses, are you here? Are you able to lean in, sir? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this great opportunity just to have a say and share my experience with this project. It has been a roller coaster ride in terms of this event coming through our families and coming to mine personally as well, and the loss of loved ones. And it has been hard. And yeah, we survived. We are here. We're still forging ahead. It has brought a greater light into looking at life in this whole perspective. And yeah, it has taught us to respect life as a whole. It has taught us to be more mature into moving forward. And as a creative, as an illustrator in this book series, this has been one of the projects that came close to my heart in terms of it came personally into the house. We had to experience the whole thing, the process of creating the book, reading the book, marinating myself into the book. The characters were already prepared because we have done the first book, Thabo Spectacles, and the second one, it was a learning and sort of a pay-as-you-go process, because it was happening at the moment, the COVID issue. It was happening, and while it was happening, I was home with the boys. I've got 2 kids. I was home with the boys. While teaching them, I was also reading at the book. It had so much information, in a sense that I would teach the boys and that would happen literally. And then the schools opened. I was one of those parents that were against it. I had to keep my kids at home for them to be, I'd say, in fact, it was for me to be safe as a parent, you know, in seeing forward that the kids would be safe at school. My wife is an educator, so that was a major thing as well, because daily she would go to the school and she would put herself on the line in terms of the disease. So it has been a roller coaster ride, different emotions. And yeah, the creative process, I loved it. It was educational. It was more close to home. And I'm grateful for the opportunities the Tlakas gave me. And yeah, I say also moving forward, and cheers to the next 50 books.
Well, thank you, Moses, and thank you for you know, that confirmation about the 50 books. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done. And again, so your illustrations have been bold, they've been beautiful, and they've sort of resonated with us, you know, as a people. So thank you so much for giving, you know, faces to the little us's as well in the book. So thank you so much. So I know we've all been waiting for this moment, and we've sort of you know, let the author sort of marinate a bit before I serve her to you. Ladies and gents, it gives me such a warm feeling in my heart and soul when I introduce you to Dr. Zanele Tlaka, who is, let me do this properly, right? Let me do this properly. She is not just a pediatrician. She's not just a thought leader. She is a mom. She is a poet. She's a playwright. She is, you know, she has shown us those glass ceilings can be and should be broken. And ma'am, again, I thank you for inviting me to be part of this very worthwhile book launch. I know there'll be lots more to follow. And so I'm gonna just now switch off my mic and listen to you as you tell us about this journey, where it has taken you, where it will be taking you, and about, you know, the subject matter, which is the book, of course. Thank you so much, Zanele.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for that kind introduction. And no pressure, 50 books, we'll see how far we get by God's grace. So I think, yeah, Lillian has really introduced me quite well. So I think I can get into what this whole journey really has been like for me. Thank you to everyone who's been on the panel today. We've had such an interesting time, great discussions. And I'm so glad to see that, you know, we are very intentional about our children. We are really doing our best to ensure that we engage them. And I think this last conversation about being honest with children is very close to my heart, because I'm very much a firm believer in that. Teresho asks very difficult questions. That's my firstborn. And I've really tried to ensure that I answer as honestly as possible, because I think, like the comments in the chat, Daddy is saying that you pay for those answers you give when you want to get them off your back. So thank you guys, it's been really a great discussion. And to my colleague who really gave us some insightful information. I'm also quite big on sharing information and empowering ourselves. And that's also part of what the book series is about. So maybe just to go back to how it's been. So Thabo's Spectacles launched last year in September. And it's really been phenomenal to see how much support people have given this book. Thank you so much, Lillian, for that kind introduction. And no pressure, 50 books, we'll see how far we get by God's grace. So I think, yeah, Lillian has really introduced me quite well. So I think I can get into what this whole journey really has been like for me. Thank you to everyone who's been on the panel today. We've had such an interesting time, great discussions. And I'm so glad to see that, you know, we are very intentional about our children. We are really doing our best to ensure that we engage them. And I think this last conversation about being honest with children is very close to my heart, because I'm very much a firm believer in that. Teresho asks very difficult questions. That's my firstborn. And I've really tried to ensure that I answer as honestly as possible, because I think, like the comments in the chat, Daddy is saying that you pay for those answers you give when you want to get them off your back. So thank you guys, it's been really a great discussion. And to my colleague who really gave us some insightful information. I'm also quite big on sharing information and empowering ourselves. And that's also part of what the book series is about. So maybe just to go back to how it's been. So Thabo's Spectacles launched last year in September. And it's really been phenomenal to see how much support people have given this book. Thank you so much, Lillian, for that kind introduction. And no pressure, 50 books, we'll see how far we get by God's grace. So I think, yeah, Lillian has really introduced me quite well. So I think I can get into what this whole journey really has been like for me. Thank you to everyone who's been on the panel today. We've had such an interesting time, great discussions. And I'm so glad to see that, you know, we are very intentional about our children. We are really doing our best to ensure that we engage them. And I think this last conversation about being honest with children is very close to my heart, because I'm very much a firm believer in that. Teresho asks very difficult questions as my firstborn. And I've really tried to ensure that I answer as honestly as possible, because I think like the comments in the chat, Daddy Zabus is saying that you pay for those answers you give when you want to get them off your back. So thank you guys, it's been really a great discussion. And to my colleague who really gave us some insightful information. I'm also quite big on sharing information and empowering ourselves. And that's also part of what the book series is about. So maybe just to go back to how it's been. So Thabo's Spectacles launched last year in September. And it's really been phenomenal to see how much support people have given. So perhaps then I'll just revisit the experience that I've had with Thabo's Spectacles. It's really been a phenomenal one. The book sales have gone really well. We exceeded 200 books in sales. And what I've enjoyed the most is the feedback. The parents would give feedback about, oh my goodness, they cannot stop reading this book. And like the younger children who can't even read, the parents will tell you that, look, she can actually tell me the story from cover to cover just by looking at the pictures. So Moses, thank you very, very much. I think Moses has done a phenomenal job with that, in that the characters are emotive. Like the children can actually look at the picture and be able to see how Thabo's feeling. So I think I'd like Moses to have a say when I'm done, you know, about the process for him. And other feedback I've had were confirming for me that this book series is important. I'll just share a few, if you'll allow me. So one of the feedbacks I had, it's actually a friend whose child was due to have spectacles. And it's one of the videos that we were going to share with you that we've been struggling to get the audio right. And he was really quite resistant to this idea. And it was actually a bit of an issue. And she got the book for him. And then they were due to get the spectacles. And when they went, he was quite excited about it. And because he'd read what Thabo experienced with it and he identified with it. And so I realized that, you know, that's made a difference for someone, you know. So this boy is less likely to struggle with this issue and feel that he's awkward and feel that he's not like other children. So that really, I think I actually almost shed a tear when I got that message. Another testimony I got was a friend, a colleague, she's actually a pediatrician also, who has a friend who's an albino. And she sent one picture where he's literally sitting like this with a book, struggling so much to actually see. And she came to me, she bought the book and she shared it with him and they were reading through together. And he's at a primary school level. And after that, you know, he was encouraged to actually go get spectacles. And having gotten his spectacles, then he was now able to sit properly and read properly, he could see the board at school. And it made a big difference for him, because also being a child with albinism, he probably has just other struggles to contend with, you know. So I guess the vision problem is one problem that Thabo Spectacles was able to help him with. So it's really been great. I've enjoyed it a lot. I've enjoyed seeing the pictures of the kids receiving their books, and I really encourage parents to please continue sending me those. And so what I was trying to do with this medical book series, for anyone who might not have been on the first launch, is that I'd like to do some teaching around certain conditions. And in doing so, then to also try and address whatever stigma might be around those conditions. I feel that that's something that will help children to adjust, you know, to these medical conditions that they have. And one of the things that really, I think for me, confirmed that I need to do this is I work in the ICU, so obviously I work with the sickest children. And there was a time actually in the ICU, I was at Bar at the time, we had, I think, 2 or 3 children who unfortunately had to lose their limbs. And just seeing how they responded differently to that for me was quite interesting. The one was a 2-year-old who I marveled at, you know, the strength he displayed. I marveled at how much he adjusted to not having, you know, his arm. He really just got on with life, and I was like, wow, okay. And we've gotten feedback from his mom, and she says, this guy just continues with life, you know, and he's adjusting and he's figuring out how to move around and do what he needs to do. And then there was another child who, she was 6 years old, and even while she was with us in the ICU, she was battling a lot with this new reality, you know, and we were struggling to figure out, okay, how do we help her with this? And what a colleague actually eventually did is they found a doll at home that had lost its limb. Like I think the dog sort of bit off the leg of this doll, and they brought it to work, and they were showing her the doll, and you know, that actually helped that child to sort of adjust, because now she was seeing a representation of how she was, you know. And so I thought, then how much better would it be then for a child like this to actually be reading a book where she can actually identify with the character in the book, who probably has lost a limb, or like with Thabo, or someone who's needing to wear spectacles. And so that's where the motivation comes from. And so with the second book, I had a different topic or condition in mind. But then I think as, you know, this pandemic unfolded, a part of me really thought this is going to be something that's going to be very important in our history. We're going to be talking about this for some time to come, even as things start to normalize, however you want to interpret that word. And so I thought, you know, I think this would definitely be an important thing to address, and seeing how much it has changed our lives and changed the lives of children. And so I started writing it around the time of lockdown. And what was interesting is that I then got to a point where I got stuck with the story. I wasn't sure in which direction to take it. Okay, do I let Thabo go to hospital and then have that hospital experience be, you know, put in the book? I actually wasn't sure how to approach it. And then, like, unfortunately, then COVID came too close to home. And I guess in that time, sort of managed to figure out how to complete the book. And so with this book, yeah, I guess is to teach around the non-pharmacological measures that children need to be mindful about, to help them understand why their world is so different at this point. And I think it was Tulu who mentioned in her post on Instagram, that, you know, we tend to leave the kids behind. We understand why we're not locking down, we're sanitizing, and everything that we're doing, but have we remembered to bring the children along? You know, have we actually explained to them that you're doing this because, you know, or do we just tell them, just put the sanitizer because the shop requires you to do that? Or do they actually understand that this is why I'm doing it? And so I felt that this book will help with that. There's a page at the end of the book where I just did a fun hand washing thing to teach children just how to pay a bit more attention to the washing of hands, which I taught my girls and they really enjoyed it. My eldest one, Teresho, even did a video. I got home one day and she said, "Oh, mommy, I have a speech prepared." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I sat down. And as she started, I said, "Okay, well, you want to do it again?" And then I pulled out my phone and I recorded her. And she was going through teaching about coronavirus. And you must wash your hands for 20 seconds. And yeah, I realized that, you know, the children also get empowered, just as we are empowered with knowledge. It's the same for children. And so that's what I aimed to do with this book. And I think the overarching message also in the book is about the frontline workers, the healthcare workers. It's just to capture what it is that their families would have been going through in this time, which is something that maybe not everyone is aware of. You know, it's quite an adjustment for the families and the children of healthcare workers. I've had colleagues share, you know, the changes they've seen in their own children, where a potty trained child will now become incontinent and all that potty training is undone because now those locked down and now mommy has to work even harder for longer hours because of, you know, this pandemic. And so I just, in that, sorry, Thabo? Okay. My timekeeper. Okay. So in saying that, just to really honor those who've been in the front line, and to say that you're not forgotten. You know, I think the community at large does recognize that there's a lot of sacrifice that has gone into being the people who put ourselves up to doing that work and helping at the front line. So that is the process in a nutshell. And I guess I'll just close with saying that the videos that we haven't been able to share, we'll put them up on the social, so you can just continue to check us on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll also share on WhatsApp status as well. I really felt that they needed to be shared, so I'll just make sure that we do that even after this launch. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zanele. You're such a lady, you know, you speak so calmly. So I'm gonna just in closing also take from that you know, atmosphere that you've created and just be, you know, calm and relaxed. But wow, what a great achievement. We honor you, we salute you. We know it takes sacrifice and all of that. And so to you and to your family, your daughters, as well as your husband, the timekeeper, we salute you, you know, for the journey that you've decided to go on, because we know, you know, our footsteps are ordered and we need to do what we need to do in this lifetime. Folks, we are at the end of the program.
Yeah, I don't know if there are any questions. Okay. I think going once, twice. Looks like everyone is happy and answered.
Yeah, definitely looks that way. And so you know, we don't want to take you away from Sunday lunch. Oof, wish I was at your homes at this time. But yeah, if there are no questions, I think some of closing thoughts from Zanele. and then me, and then we're done. But from my side, it has been awesome. It has been such an impactful, you know, this part of where you are in your journey. I am so glad that you know, I was roped in, and the way I was roped in, and I, you know, you gave my life purpose and in such a special way. Zanele, we wish you luck on everything that is yet to come. Please press on our buttons for those 50 books, and then we'll happily assist you, and Thabang as well. Even you know, from the background, thank you for the role that you've been playing and continue to play, and I wish you all the best going forward. Ladies and gents, as for me, it has been awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lillian. You were an exemplary host. You really were great. I think, yeah, we knew that you were just the person for this. So thank you so much. Yeah, you're a pro. You really handled all the glitches very well. And I just also want to thank everyone else who's been on the panel, who brought really great insights into this discussion. I really do appreciate it. And those who have been in attendance, we did run a bit of a marathon leading up to this, because of just sorting out obviously certain logistics with the books. So marketing time was limited, but still really great to see the support that continues to come through. And a very big thank you to my partner in crime, Thabang. Yeah, there's a lot that I wouldn't be able to do without his assistance. So thank you so much. He's being a bit camera shy today. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. And I see the comments in the chats. I really do appreciate the support. And yeah, let's meet on the socials. We'll continue putting up more content, and do get the books. Yes, so where to get the books? You can obviously start by getting them from me directly. It's 100 Rand for one book, 80 Rand for Thabo Spectacles, and we can courier to your door for an additional 80 Rand or 60 Rand via PEP. And we will get the books eventually on the Ethnic Kids website, and some books also at the Melville Bookshop. Just trying to remember the name. So yeah, we will put all of that information out as well. And yeah, please do get the book. I think it really will be a worthwhile, and it'll be a great Christmas present for those aunties who want to give lots of love to all the kids. So yeah, thank you very much. I think with that said, do enjoy your Sunday afternoon.